In regards to, you had brought it up a few minutes ago, I think people are always anxious and wanting to forecast what freshmen are going to make a big splash.
Yeah, so there's a few I've got around, and a couple of them may be a stretch. And when I say make an impact, there's going to be more obviously on this list, Mark, that I have that will play in their 4 games and then take that red shirt, right? But these are guys that I think will play more than those 4 games and will make an impact in some way, shape or form. So let's start on the offensive side of the ball, and then we'll move defensively. So I think probably the biggest impact player on the offensive side of the ball, from a well, I hate to say one person, two. There's two that I think, true freshman. Javonte Barnes, we've talked about him a decent amount. I think he's going to be in the rotation. I think he's probably going to be at the very least the number 3, um, running back right now, coming into the season. So he'll get plenty of carries. He'll get plenty of playing time. Kind of depends on how he takes in the other parts of the offense, right? How is he, catching the ball out of the backfield? How is he able to, pick up blitzers and things like that, pass protection type of stuff. Jayden Gibson is another one who continues to make play after play after play in the fall. If nothing else, he's going to be a considerable weapon in um, in the red zone with his height, but made a huge, incredibly acrobatic one-handed catch in one of their final scrimmages. So I think he's going to be a guy that is a weapon for Oklahoma, and wouldn't be surprised if by the middle of the year he's in. Um, he's a more dedicated role, I guess you would say, in a maybe a starter or something like that. So those are the first two guys. Gavin Sawchuk is a guy that a a little on the fence on. I mean, I think in between whether he's going to get his opportunities from a 4 game perspective, or if he will be, if he's too good to keep him off the field. I think his speed, is impressive. One of the fastest guys on the team. I think his ability to get to the second level and break off some big runs, and then he may have a role from a kickoff return perspective as well, and or special teams just in general. So he's one that I lean towards will get a full year, but then we'll see how that goes. Let's see, and then I think there's a couple more. Nick Anderson, from a wide receiver perspective, I think he's one of those guys that may be a little bit more difficult to see him on the field, but I think he plays a role on this team. Gavin Freeman, again, I think his role is maybe a little bit at wide receiver. He's a true freshman walk on, who anytime Venables talks, he raves about this kid. So absolutely special teams guy, maybe somebody that gets a little bit of run, from a wide receiver perspective. And then when you move to the defensive side of the ball, again, the defense is going to be an area where maybe not quite as many people see the field, especially depending on what that position looks like. Jaren Kanak, is a guy that will get some playing time. We'll see where that ends up, if it ends up being primarily special teams, or maybe at that cheetah position a little bit, or just at a linebacker spot. And then our Mason Thomas is one that's probably interesting to some people. If people remember him, he'd been an Iowa State commit for a while, but later in that recruiting cycle last year, um, it's like people just missed him, and then he came and he started getting offers from a ton, of different teams. Georgia, I think, was one. Maybe Notre Dame was one, and I know Oklahoma got in there obviously later, and got him. I think he's a guy that's going to play a decent amount, particularly from a rush perspective. I think he had 17 sacks last year, in the high school ranks, but will specialize from a speed rush, from a predictable, third and long, perspective as well. And then there's one other one that I mentioned that I missed on the offensive side of the ball, which was Caden Helms as a tight end. He's a guy that I think it'll be interesting. They're not as deep at that tight end position. You've got Daniel Parker, obviously the transfer from Missouri, but then you got Braden Willis. Those two are about are about the only two that they have that's really played. Has a lot of meaningful snaps, so could see Caden Helms as more of a wide receiver type of tight end, but Jason Llewellyn is another guy who's a freshman who has more of a body type like like a prototypical tight end that you would see. So and then one other guy, Robert Spears Jennings, who's a true freshman coming in from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma here in the Tulsa area. I think he might be a backup at one of your safety spots, so could see him getting some time. I don't think I think a lot of people would look for Gentry Williams. I know that he's been impressive. I've not heard a ton about him just in terms of the two deep and things like that, but yeah, I think some of these kids have an opportunity to make a big splash and a big you know playmaking, but I think you'll see a majority of it on the offensive side of the ball, with I think R. Mason Thomas having that opportunity to make some moves in predictable third and long situations.